What are proper drug laws? That's the title. I may add to that title. And who am I in this video? I am a philosopher. We're going to say a philosopher, a natural analyst. So I'm a natural scientist in a way too. So we should have different. By the way, and as a philosopher, definitely, we should have an analyst. We should have ways to assess what science projects we work on. So you got scientists who are great with chemical formulas. I'm not that guy. But I am a guy who's curious about, would this work, would that work, would this work, would that work, right? Or is this kosher, is this help somebody? I'm into nutrition, and starting with that, really. So into nutrition, I've been very experimental, and had a lot of scientific questions. So I'm a philosopher and having those questions and coming up with ways that things can help us, help society. And I'm a good philosopher because I believe in Jesus Christ, right? One human race. I believe we are human beings. All of us are human beings. So when we're working with medicine, the title would be called, What Are Proper Medicine/Drug Laws? Because medicine is a drug. Medicine is made up of drugs. It's a drug. So to put things in perspective, so our laws are all messed up. It's because I guess I'm through explaining. But the philosopher stuff, I might come back to it. But our laws are messed up for a lot of reasons. We let evolutionists run medicine, and they don't believe we're human beings. They don't believe we're in a God. They don't believe that we have to love our neighbors, because God tells us to love our neighbors. They don't believe that we're equally human, right? So and never once has any doctor or scientist ever evolved the person and kept them from dying. They've fixed something that was mechanically wrong with their dying body to help prolong it, to continue to die. So they have never helped evolve a person, even scientifically, and we already don't evolve scientifically. We die. So philosophy. So we have to start with good philosophy. Starts with medicine-wise, understanding that we're human. Number two. We have to understand that God created medicine. So why are we outlawing natural plants, natural medicinal plants, from scientists to real scientists who will work on them, licensed scientists? We want licensed scientists, whether they end up don't believe in God or not, right? So they're licensed and regulated. So they're supposed to, and they do that. Usually a lot of the ones that get into the evolutionist sciences, those are the ones that are good at science, like chemistry or whatever. So, but they're wrong about stuff, and they lie. They don't believe in God, who tells them not to lie. So they're smarter than me about chemical stuff. They're not smarter than me about philosophy. There's people who are smarter than me. This is explaining me being a philosopher again. But there's people who are smarter than me in presentation. I might be getting better at that. I'm more of a writer, and this is new to me, talking. But writing is, there's people who are smarter than me at presentation. There's people who are smarter than me at remembering what they're going to talk about. But there's not almost anybody who's ever out-analyzed me. And I'll keep analyzing all day and all night and all day and all night with basketball and everything else, right? Who's the best player? And I put aside my biases. I look at stats. I don't ignore stats and all those kind of things. So I do that, and I do it with ethics. I do it with ethics. That's why I call myself a philosopher, but I'm a natural analyst too. Now I have extra and a supernatural ability, perhaps God gave me, maybe a gift of encouragement, a gift of evangelism, because I have more other Christians. Some people I would consider to be real Christians are not as into evangelism as I am. But there's also a lot of people I think might be fake Christians. If they're not interested in an evangelism at all, then why not? Because you have to be. That's got to be. It might not be your gift, but you can't discredit it, or you must not be a Christian, right? So, but as a philosopher, I kind of got off the main point of what I was going to sum up on the philosopher. So, but I have to. I'm a guy that can tell scientists, work on this. This is important. So I'm good at evaluating what parts of history were most influential to us as human beings and understanding our equality as human beings. I'm good at that, and I'm good at seeing through lies about ethics and stuff. So what we have to know is we're all equally human, and God created medicine. Number 2 was, I said, God created medicine, so we should have it in the hands of doctors. The medicinal plant, I think you should legalize. I'll just straight up tell you that. The medicinal plants, but in a licensed place still, because it's kind of like we should license gun dealers, because they're dangerous. Gun dealer, a gun or a knife, obviously you can hurt somebody else with it directly, whereas drugs, except for certain ones that can kill somebody by touch, those are more like a poison, right? But those are not like a medicinally consumable human drug. The ones that kill people by touch, like anthrax and stuff like that. I think that's what it's called. It's poison. So, but we declare it as if certain medicinal plants, like the coca leaf, they act like that's a poison or an evil drug. It's not an evil drug. It's evil when you put it in evil hands, and it's evil when you to not have it regulated and have the strongest forms. Anything's bad in the strongest form. Some of these street drugs are not as bad as alcohol. I'll just put it like that. As far as each one can be bad and doing too much, each one can be dangerous. But when it's in the medicinal plant form, like if you drink them like a tea, then they're not much worse than caffeinated tea or coffee. So that's also a drug. That's also a medicine. Caffeinated drinks, chocolate's a medicine. Coffee's a natural medicine. Tea is a natural medicine with caffeine. And so you got the herbs, and so I do understand the science from a nutritional standpoint study. And so I think at one point I forgot, but I might come back to it. So about how I present the solution. I'm part of the solution. I know what I wanted to say. I wanted to say that I'm not good at remembering stuff. And that me making that face might make me forget. I'm sorry. That's true. So I'm not the best presenter, but I am an analyst who goes on and on. And so the fact that whether you disagree, I don't care if somebody disagrees with me or not. And some things, it's obvious when I'm saying something I'm 100% sure on. And then some things are speculation, and it's pointing a direction for people to look at my videos, my content, and it's stuff I want somebody who's more knows their history more, or knows as far as details, or who knows their science more, to research it or make something happen with it. Work on this subject that I presented. What I'm doing is I present subjects. That's the point. I present subjects that nobody else does. I've done that quite a few times in my past, and I'm still doing that. And it's not like I'm going to keep looking for something nobody else has done. I've done that some, but for mostly I've found these solutions, but these have been hard to answer to where I had the confidence to. I've had struggles in life too, based on my research on these things, and struggles with poverty because of racism. I've dealt with people who steal from me because they're racist. I've had people who in drug culture, because I've looked at that culture. I've not believed what I hear and stuff, and I found out, I still didn't believe what I hear when people stereotype a drug or a culture. I'm like, that's not true. It's like, this isn't true. This isn't true. So I've experimented and gone there, but I didn't do it just out of the blue. I did it because I was assaulted by someone in the underground drug culture, we'll call it. And I've that's where I was introduced to it and curious about it and thinking, well, that person didn't just do that to me. They're under pressure from somewhere to be doing that kind of thing. So, I didn't, I forgave the person, but I never saw him again either. But that person was, but they ruined my life in one way. And because I was innocent, sexually innocent, as far as nobody's sexually innocent, really. But I'd saved my first kiss for marriage, but I believed growing up religious, that everything I was banking on was my reputation, and that stole my reputation. That's how it hurt me. It stole my reputation. So I don't buy into this. I'm not into this stuff. It's completely wrong. I'll tell you this: when people do all these self-righteous killings for people who have sexual problems or this or that, And I'm not talking about, I'm talking about adults and adults. I'm not talking about kids involved. But when people have, get drunk and talk sexual in a way they wouldn't normally, stuff like that happens on drugs, especially if their drugs were poison, they get them from the street and overdo it, or if they get overly drunk, or do what Noah did in the Bible and was found naked while he's drunk, stuff like that. That is not a reason to kill people. And that brings up one point I'll make on another subject. I'll probably repeat this a lot in a lot of stuff, that the same people who vote against the death penalty will be out there and kill somebody for something stupid like that. And that's not death penalty worthy. What it really means is you need to quit using, you can't drink, you can't do whatever drug you did, you can't do that medicine, it's not working for you. That's what it means. And so the same people that would kill them will give them the medicine again and make them do it. And they'll have to kill them if they act up while they're on it. Well, instead of doing that, they should have just not gave them the medicine. They shouldn't have dealt that medicine to them. So it doesn't make sense, really, right? So, but the reason, also philosophically speaking, the psychological warfare, and reason that they qualify that is because one of the biggest sins, according to communism, in our country, is sex, because they don't want babies. They don't want. That's because they want population control. So they've turned sex appeal into the biggest sin, but hypocritically, they promote sex appeal all the time to sell everything they have, right? So it's kind of strange, they want you to worship somebody's beauty, make them look beautiful all the time, but you can't have a relationship with them, because that's slavery. The relationships are slavery. Husband and wife is slavery, supposedly, and according to them. And then, the only way it's not slavery to worship a woman's beauty is if we make money off her by putting her in our magazines. And it's all confusing, but they are hypocritical on the issue. And so they promote sex appeal from that standpoint, but in the personal realm, you can't have any sex appeal. So you just have to ignore all that, really, and go on, but speak against it. And then don't think you're a monster for having sex appeal. God gave us sex appeal, and he allows for sexual gratification, enjoyment, and within marriage, between husband and wife. But the purpose he gave it for us is reproduction and growing the earth, because he wants us to be introduced to the gospel, but be pure within marriage, and to have more people in heaven, right? That's the purpose, is to create more people, to have more people in heaven, which is the perfect government. So a perfect place. That's the only perfect government, right? So you have, okay, so back to the medicine. How does that tie into medicine? I'm just saying they use a lot of games in cartels and everything, the illegal medicine and all that. But it's stuff, medicine can cause people to be, relax in some ways and not be conscientious of those kind of things. So medicine can be dangerous. It can have you killed. We'll talk about the dangers real briefly here. It can get you killed. It can get you drunk, drive. It can make you get behind the wheel when you weren't going to get behind the wheel. So there's a reason for cautionary measures with medicine for reasons like that, because back in Bible times, they didn't have all the traffic and cars and everything else. You can walk out in front of a car on medicine, certain medicines, if you get too much. So, but you want medicine, I can tell you straight up, you don't want it in killer's hands and thieves' hands running the business. You want it in a licensed dealer's hands. And I don't think doctors today are the best people for that. Doctors don't know much philosophy. They don't know much about addiction. They don't know, they assume the superstition that once an addict, always an addict. That's not true. And then once an addict, always an addict is not true. Addiction is a disease is not true. That's a trick to help advance the illegal dealing. And so if you put everything in perspective, that's a subject I'll expound on in another video. But because I'm going to have a part 1, part 2, part 3 to this series, I don't know how many parts, because that subject right there can be a big subject. The psychology to break addiction, but it starts with nutrition. I'll give you that. And it starts with having rehabs where there's no cigarettes or coffee either, or chocolate or tea. Real rehabs from that, because those are drugs too. So then you can have other rehabs that keep you off illegal drugs. But just admit that's what those are about, all right? And then that one that's specifically for alcohol, maybe, because it has a different kind of withdrawal symptom. And so you have So the proper medicine laws would include that we need to do better with our cigarette laws. We need to have no tar in the cigarettes. We need to have no, you could even start debating if it's good to have anything to smoke at all. I mean, it's you can hold smoke in your mouth instead of inhaling. You know, once they get better, if it gets to the point, which is my goal, hopefully to help it get to a point where they make better, safer products. I guess they've already done some with clove cigarettes. I prefer not to smoke at all. I've experimented with it before. It can be addictive in a way, or not necessarily, but it definitely can be damaging to your vocal cords, your lungs, your drying your throat out, all that kind of stuff. But people, there's still some attraction to it for some reason. But if they had safer venues, safer stuff, it wouldn't hurt you as bad. But so get rid of the tar. You shouldn't have the fiberglass or glass in cigarettes to cut people's lungs open in order to make them absorb more nicotine and tar or whatever to make them more addicted. That's the purpose. That doesn't make sense. So we got to do better on the regulator. The regulator's got to do a better job on getting the products right. Right? And so once you do all that, it's a proper law. Here's the reason it's a proper law, because when you get the laws proper and understand that God created medicine, and you put medicinal plants in places like liquor stores that are adult stores, they're out of children's faces, right? So, but when you have illegal people, you leave it to the streets and gangs and all that to deal everything. They end up doing their deals in front of children, see it and all that. And I'm not going to say they go out of their way to do it in front of kids. They probably do protect kids. A lot of them, most of them are pretty, I think they're pretty conscientious about that. But not all of them, But either way, they don't care. They're so worried about getting money and stuff. Kids see it. And sometimes you got young dealers that are into the money, and they end up selling it to young kids, their age, right? So, and it's all about the money. So they're not even thinking about that it's not good for them. They're not thinking about any of that stuff. They're thinking it's not that bad. It's not that bad. But it is. But out there, they're not regulated for poison. It's not regulated for poison. So, but they don't think about that too much. Now they do, because there's more poison there's more fentanyl and stuff going around than there used to be. But now they think more about that. But technically, if you legalized it proper, here's the proper way, by the way, on this point. So I made a proper point about putting medicinal plants in licensed dealers' hands in the public, not in doctors' hands. Put the medicinal plants in science hands to make the concentrated forms. So in other words, they can make concentrated forms for the doctors. That's the other part. What else? And eventually you could talk about maybe mixing drinks in the liquor stores instead of having the strongest forms out there. That's a debatable one. They may or may not do that. But I forgot one point, but I'll get back to it. But once they're in the store, kids aren't allowed in there. The money you've turned it into a nonprofit. You've disempowered the gangs and cartels from dealing stuff. They're still going to try and do it in some ways, right? But you've disempowered them, and not just that. So they're still going to try and do it some ways, but you've shrunk their customer base, and you've shrunk their customers who because they can get a safe form for a right price without anybody stalking them down from the dealing group to smoke and steal from them and all that kind of stuff. So they're not being rushed. They're doing it in a safer way. And usually the medicinal form. So the other person you can get it from is the doctor. Now the doctors, who knows if they'll ever prescribe like they should have. They no longer will say, we don't care what happens. We're not trying to get sued anymore. We'll leave it to the streets. So I would say the way we fix that is when you do it legal proper, then you start realizing it's got to be the consumer's responsibility, not the doctor's responsibility for taking their medicine properly. And so right now it's hard to, they try to act like, they always put they don't blame drug dealers on the street, illegal dealers, for an addict who overdoses or was irresponsible and how they spent their money, and the dealers steal from them a lot, the dealing groups. But the fact is, they don't hold addicts now responsible and sue the illegal dealers if something happens to an addict. So what they do is, but when you legalize it, we should put the responsibility on the addicts. We'll call them addicts, but Although I have a different definition of addict. But you call them addicts once you legalize the proper way. And you then, it's not, bottom line, it's not in the streets on people's faces. You can crack down, by the way, so you can crack down. That's an extra point. You can, at that point, it makes sense to crack down on the illegal dealers because they're not regulated for poison. That's why. You go after them. You can't do this because you're not regulated for poison. You're not regulated for product consistency. You're not regulated, and they have these products they can get legal. So it's now a clear reason why you arrest them, and you arrest them for those reasons. And then you got to work on fixing the laws so they're not putting people away for longer than they should be. And it shouldn't be all the same for everybody. It should be case by case, because if you've caught a dealer or found out that a dealer is poisoning his drugs on purpose, obviously that can be attempted murder or reckless terroristic level selling of drugs and stuff. So you could put those should go away longer if they're, you have to assess if they're repentant or what, or if they didn't know. If it's somebody higher up, sometimes it's a new person, they don't know they got a bad batch, or that they were receiving bad batches. So there's a lot to that. That's why every case shouldn't be the same, in my opinion. And I'm pretty sure I'm right about that, because the Bible says, do to others as you would have them to do unto you if you were the one caught in a fault. And it also says we've all sinned, so we have to be merciful. We're supposed to be merciful, forgiving, but the point in the system, the proper prison system too, and all that, is to keep the public safe, preserve people living comfortably, preserve people living ethically, preserve people living life to its fullest pleasures, ethical pleasures, that is. And so you have, let's see, I kind of wonder if this series won't last as long as my other series. It's almost like it's easy to explain. So, but the psychological side of it's not. So you got psychological warfare behind all these lapses and trick drug laws. And a lot of them are trick drug laws. A lot of them are domino effect. A lot of them are the spirit of fear. God does not give the spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind. And when it comes to the drug culture, we're scared that if we tell scientists to make better drugs, safer drugs, that's a promotion for use. No, it isn't. It makes them safer. It puts them legally behind counters, not in your face in the streets. So currently they are being thrown in people's faces in the streets, and come on, I need money, buy this, come on, make all this, making people feel bad or like they're going to get jumped if you don't buy a drug from them because they want money. And so that's a temptation to people. You're putting it out in their faces, and then because we know that they've done it enough to where they're using natural medicines like the weed or the sometimes I guess the coke, that's actually natural and stuff. So it has pleasurable effects because it's a pain medicine naturally, and it's also a probably the best natural depressant that they made illegal years ago, and then they made all these fake chemical forms of depression drugs, when the real king of depression drugs is something in the coca leaf plant, and we should legalize and make the scientists be able to pull those properties out of the leaf and make a medicine that is good for depression, and it's safer and less addictive and low potency, not as strong, and not as something that picks somebody up and drops them, all that kind of stuff. They can do that stuff. They can't tell you. They lie now when they say they got ancient whale bones from tens of millions of years ago, and they can test all that. They can't do that. You can't do what didn't exist. It never existed to test it. They're lying, and they're completely skipping over the idea, the possibility of there being a flood. Just scratch Noah's flood. Scratch that. Any other flood. They're skipping the possibility of there having been any other flood. But it was obviously in the Sahara Desert. It was from Noah's flood. It's written in history. So and there's evidence all over the world with fossils and other evidence besides those whale bones. Those whale bones are evidence of Noah's flood. So they're lying. They're trying to deny God. They're going that far with it and wanting to trick people because it holds them accountable. I don't know what all their motives are, but they just don't believe in God. And they might be racist, whatever their motive is. So, so they're lying though, right? They know they can get by with lies because they're chemists. They know chemical formulas and all that kind of stuff. And it's funny, though, a lot of the people under them and all that, they believe the lies. They think, well, this is possible. They get imaginative about the possibilities of science, that they can learn through science and things they can do. And somehow they believe the lies, right? The carbon dating is not, it has a shelf life. You can only date so far back with carbon dating anyway. So, when we'll get into dinosaurs and stuff, but dinosaurs, I would say they came, my basic theory is they came before the flood. They were before the flood when people used to live 900 something years. You look at the alligators, you look at lizards. The dinosaurs mostly look like lizards. So lizards never stop growing for as long as they live. They probably had a longer lifespan back before the flood as well. And so that's my explanation for dinosaurs, one of them, but frankly, we still have elephants. Those almost that's a big, like a dinosaur. So it's we got the rhinoceros, we got the hippopotamus. You want all that? You want that in your backyard? I don't think so. But so what's the fascination? I mean, it's fascinating. Elephants are fascinating, but I don't want to be close to one too much. So you have this. It's almost over. I'll probably stop at 30 minutes. I got 3 minutes and 20 seconds. So you have. I want to make a few points in part one, fundamental points here, and I think I left two out. One particularly. So the proper medicine laws, I'll give them straight to you. Proper medicine laws regulates medicine to make sure it has consistency. Proper medicine laws regulates medicine for price gouging. Of course, they're not good at that, right? They've used insurance to raise prices beyond the human norm. They've corrupted insurance. That wasn't insurance doing that. That was the scientists, So, like, if somebody steals a car, they should pay. I left this out of some video I did, this part. They should pay back the insurance company. The full coverage, they should pay, sometimes replace somebody's car. But while the person's in jail that stole the car, they should have to pay back the insurance company. So we've caused insurance companies not to be able to do everything they want because we have them replace cars and never be paid back for it, reimbursed by the thief. The thief needs to pay that back. And so you don't want to, in that case, you can get off quicker than you can sometimes based on the charge by paying it off, and then you can go out and leave jail after that, right? So that might be a pretty long time to pay off a car. So we don't have, anyway. So there's a lot of corruption that goes into how people have taken advantage of insurance benefits. And even the system. The system has not held thieves accountable for stealing cars because they just let the insurance pay it back. Sometimes they let them off the hook all the way. You shouldn't do that. Now, I'm going to say it's hard to pay a car back, but some people, it can be the person that was robbed can be involved in this. And there will be some people, if the laws get properized, if that's a word, there will be some people that will say the car is $10,000. They may have mercy on the poor man who stole the car and see he's been paying it back and he paid $2,000 back. Took him a year. Or it may have taken 6 months. So he paid $4,000 back in a year. Let's say. So he paid $4,000 back in a year. Behind bars, working behind bars. And then they're like, I appreciate your effort and that you did that, and I'm going to suggest they let you go. That's enough if they can afford it. Now that's a merciful person because they might say agree to let him pay another $1,000 after. That's a lot though. I mean, technically he owes the $10,000 if it was worth $10,000, right? So, but that would be for a person who did not have full coverage, so the insurance didn't replace it. So you're paying back the person. But an insurance company, they're not going to be as lenient. They might be because they can afford to be. An insurance company technically can afford to be, so they may have some leniency. So, let's see. Proper drug laws. You do It's hot. I'm sorry, the heat's getting to me. But you have, well, I'm keeping this on because this is for, I just designated this hat for the video so people recognize what video it is. I do that. I'd put different hats on for different videos. I try it as much as I can so somebody can see a video and say, oh, I know that's to that series or whatever. But, and because sometimes you can't read the print right away, or you can't see it right away or at all. But they have, but I'm really affected right now by the heat. The proper, just close to breaking a sweat. I know I want to mention 3 proper drug laws. Well, but you regulate proper for cigarettes. So you regulate for price gouging is what I was going to say before I got on the insurance subject. You regulate for poison. You legalize God's medicinal plants. You legalize the plants God gave us for medicine. But the natural form, the plant form, like for making teas and stuff, because people can get carried away with them, or somebody might try to make the concentrated forms outside of, they're still going to try to do that. But the point is, you don't trust them, and you can go through the proper venue, and you understand the tricks. What I'm doing is teaching people the tricks right now. So people understand the tricks. Drugs are dangerous still. And you teach abstinence. We still teach abstinence. This is not a law, I'm saying, but what the people misconstrue is they think that when you promote safer ways to do drugs and get drugs and all that, they think you're promoting doing more drugs. No, you're promoting doing less because you have less propensity to have withdrawals. The withdrawal is less. The trick is less. You're not rushing people. You're not causing people to overdose. If they do it on their own. That's their fault. And so I got off the subject about suing. We don't sue. So we need to quit suing doctors. And so they can prescribe medicine, and you got to take accountability yourself. Now doctors got to be smarter. They got to trust that the natural stuff is the best stuff. I mean, I'm tired of getting surgeries sometimes and get some medicine that didn't make sense and it makes my feet swell. It's not a natural medicine because they don't want to give me a narcotic. And I'm like, man, the narcotic never bothered me. I've had it before. I mean, it made me itch a little bit, but I got off it after 3 days because I didn't want to get addicted, right? So, but it worked better. Yeah, it worked better. This thing is not helping me, and then it gives me swollen feet because it's just not natural. Y'all made it from some chemical formula, right? Didn't make it from a natural. Maybe it still came from some level of natural, but mixed with chemical formulas. I don't know what. So, so they should legalize the natural medicines, the natural plants, and they make it hard because I know there's been a mess with that when they did it with marijuana, but they don't do it proper. They don't argue the whole point, and it starts in the news. I'm putting the words out there because the news media purposely confuses them on how to do all that. So there's a lot of tricks behind it. The cartels poison batches because they want to make sure the media will say, this killed somebody. You can't legalize it. How dare you? It's because the cartel poisoned it or did something. Somebody on the inside messed it up on purpose because right now the doctors are okay with the cartels dealing drugs. They're like, we're not getting sued. Go get your stuff from the street. Get it. Be careful out there. They got poison, but get your stuff from the street. If you want it, you're not getting it from me. That's why I say you put it in places like liquor stores, but still the concentrated form, maybe very, very light forms of concentrated forms can go in those stores too, but mostly just the plants would be licensed to go in places like liquor stores. And, the concentrated forms, the strong forms should be technically in doctors' hands. And, but first of all, you got to allow scientists to make those forms. So that's where it starts. And then, so you do have bad scientists, but you also got the good scientists, right? You also got the good doctors. So those good scientists will make the proper forms, and then the bad scientists, the evil, corrupt scientists and evolutionists, they'll have to compete to try to match those forms because they want to make money off it. So I don't know how you fix the money system because currently they overcharge the evolutionists, run it all, and they've overcharged for medicines and charged $5,000 for a medicine. That's ridiculous, right? Stuff like that. And so I don't know. Maybe that would balance. Stuff like that could end up balancing out, though, and making the prices start regulating properly. So they should regulate that price. They shouldn't allow scientists. The FDA is wrong for letting scientists charge that much money. And so These scientists, even though they're crooked, the same scientists that do that probably make some of the street formulas. They're the ones that throw those formulas out to the streets. So they're making money off of price gouging in the hospitals because of insurance, using insurance they know they can price gouge and get away from it. And then they're making money off the streets too. And they're tied in with legislators and the government and the Democrat side of government who are playing this cartel game on everybody. That's why they like the drug cartels coming in. They like the terrorists coming in because they want to destroy the free government. That's why they want communism. But they like it for that. So I don't know what their main motive is. That's hard to read a motive, but they're definitely doing that stuff, right? So proper drug laws, I'll probably get back into it. This video is too long. On my next video, I'll continue with the proper drug laws specific, and I wanted to close that out, but I don't have time. And then I'll get more into, obviously you saw me go off on other explanations, psychology and everything. I'll do that, expound on it, and I'll remember where I left off somewhat. Thank you. 1 John 4:8. He that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love. 1 John 1:8. If we say we have no sin, we make him a liar, and the truth is not in us. So we're lying if we act like we're perfect. We're not. It's a battle. You battle the flesh. But we have a desire to do good, to lead people to heaven, right? Because we believe in Christ's heaven. 1 John 1:9. If we confess our sins, but if we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us of our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. So that's almost a daily prayer you need to do. Ask for forgiveness, even for the sins you do that you don't know you do, or just when your mind wanders, or anything. That's a sin. All right.